I even as someone within this industry that I thought, it's changing the world, it's transformed everything or whatever. But basically everything that you can think of um, exists because someone can throw an ad against it. And so, to quote Marc Andreessen again, he said recently that like that's the challenge for technology and over the next 10 or 20 years, like, what's the biggest part of the economy? It's healthcare, it's finance and things like that. The internet so far hasn't touched any of that. The fact that the internet has done so many things to us and has invaded so much of our lives, but basically in aid of advertising to us, and it hasn't yet transformed things like healthcare, hasn't transformed things like transportation, like education yet. I guess I just naively didn't realize that that everything from Google to Facebook to anything aside from e-commerce on the consumer side, it's just the fact that because all of our attention spans have migrated over to digital, the ad dollars have followed, and that's what subsidized everything that's happened.
Yeah, it is eye-opening, and the thing I find most troubling is Seth Godin, as you know, wrote Permission Marketing plus or minus 20 years ago. And if I remember it right, his whole idea was that you would educate consumers, and consumers would opt in, and the consumers that opt in would be this really powerful set of consumers. And so really what you wanted to do is to try to get consumers to opt in, because one man's junk mail is another woman's treasure. And that made all the sense in the world at the time. And yet when I go to, and I won't name a publication because it's not fair, but you pick any fucking publication and you tell me, Brian, but by my eye, more than 2/3 of the page when you first go there is advertising. And in some cases, more than 2/3 of the page is always advertising. And now we have those little fucking video things that follow us around.
Well, but think of how that's ebbed and flowed, because you remember in the late 90s, early 2000s when, pop-ups and pop-unders were a thing, and everyone was so annoyed about that. And then somehow we killed pop-ups and pop-unders. And then everyone's like, okay, great. But then it comes back in different ways and more insidious ways or whatever. And so now we've got ad blockers and things like that to fight that. Or like the cyclical nature of, when I was researching like around the time that the dot-com bubble burst, there was a huge controversy that I vaguely remember from the time, but was a way bigger news story than I remember. And it was just about the fact that DoubleClick, the ad network DoubleClick, this is about in 99 or 2000, had done something like, had done an opt-in for sharing your location or something about cookies or something. And man, this was on the front page of the New York Times, and CNN's covering this. Can you believe they're invading our privacy? And we should have the right to surf the web without people knowing where we're going. Well, listen, Facebook would not exist if it couldn't follow you around the web. Retargeting ads and things like that. The fact that, and by the way, what things like Facebook and social media are is we've told the advertisers, this is what I like. This is who I am. This is where I live. This is my age. This is my gender. So essentially, when I discovered that DoubleClick story, I'm like, it was cute.
It was cute, yeah. I've often thought, Brian, if you're also, of course, you said it a little bit ago, Facebook's what? Is it 10 or is it coming up on 10?
Well, it was 2004, so 2014 was 10 years. So however many
shit, it's way past 10.
Yeah,
it's coming up on 15.
Yeah.
So if you go back, say, 18 years ago, if somebody had said to us, hey, listen, the government's going to have this new agency and they're going to build this app. Yeah. And they're going to ask you to tell us all the people you're related to and where you went to school and what you're doing and put up pictures of your kids and the whole thing, right? If that had happened, there would have been riots in the streets, right? Don't you think?
Listen, Amazon
and yet we fucking do it like a bunch of 1984 zombies. I'm going to the grocery store. Oh, here's a picture of my fucking lunch. Rant, rant, rant.
Amazon is selling us devices now that we put in our home that are always listening 1984 style with microphones.
I don't understand this. We just had Morgan Wright, the security guru on Legends and Losers, and I asked him, I said, hey, do you have one of these fucking Alexas? And he said, absolutely not. I said, to your point, I said, this thing, to do what it does, has to listen to everything that everybody in your house says, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, but that
and here we are, like, put this in the house. We love them.
You know, I'm sort of agnostic. I mean, I feel like it's fucked up that you give away your privacy and your rights, but I'm agnostic to this debate on a macro level because, you know, getting back to that, how I said that a personalized newspaper, you know, only stories that you care about. Well, that sounds like a great idea. Well, the only way I can get that is if you tell me what you like.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, that's been a thread all the way down through the internet era, is that, yes, we can do all this great stuff for you. We can put a GPS on your phone so that there's not a place on this planet where you can get lost. But guess what? I mean, in theory, that also means
we know where you are.
We know where you are. We'll never lose you either. Right. So it's almost like philosophically that's always been the tension, right? Like, if you want to get all of these great advances that make your life theoretically simpler or richer or whatever, it is sort of giving up control. It's almost coming back to this idea of AI and the robots taking over. If you want the robots to make dinner and answer all your questions for you, you're basically giving up control of your life to that robot, right? Well, maybe that's the tension of modern technology.